This is Sam and Joku, host of the Ravens Talk podcast. Mike MacDonald, Super Bowl winner. Is Jesse Minter next?
Kadri Ismail. Well, he had a GM named Snyder. Well, Minter has a GM named Eric Costa. Can he build the team to help Jesse Minter get to a Super Bowl?
And I'm Kevin Oestreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. And with the offseason officially here, all eyes and attention turns to Lamar Jackson. The Locked On Ravens Squad show starts right now.
Rise and shine. It's the Ravens Squad. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad show starts now.
What is going on, Ravens flock? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Sam and Joku with Kevin Oestreicher and Kadri Ismail talking Ravens football here as the offseason has officially begun. We have crowned Super Bowl champions. The Seattle Seahawks get the job done with Mike MacDonald, and that's where we'll start off first. Mike MacDonald wins. Is Jesse Minter next online? We'll also talk about Lamar Jackson. We have gotten official word from national media that the contract talks will begin shortly. The Ravens definitely need to chop down that $74.5 million cap hit. So we'll talk about that. We'll also have Q&A with you guys, the Ravens flock. So make sure you have those questions ready. We'll be coming to you guys to give us questions that we can possibly answer on this show. I want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them with that bet on FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Now, the Seattle Seahawks got the job done. Not much of a surprise if you ask any single Ravens fan who saw Mike MacDonald coach this team for the last 2 years prior to the emergence of Zachary Orr. Now, Mike MacDonald is a Super Bowl champion, cannot take that away from him. Now, Jesse Minter gets a chance to follow suit, I believe, based on what I heard on social media. That looks like Mike MacDonald's the first ever coordinator, head coach to call defensive plays and win a championship. I'm not sure if that's true because I think, Bill Belichick, I'm sure, called defense at some point in time. But regardless, Mike MacDonald, a genius on the defensive side of the ball, called plays, got the job done. Do we feel like Jesse Minter could be following suit in short order? Q, I'll start with you.
I think so. I think this is an awakening, if you will, of the next wave of the young-minded coach. If Sean McVay was the young-minded coach that was able to, get his team to the Super Bowl, look at a different way of getting his team to the Super Bowl, and then also winning it eventually, but the McVay tree growing off of it, I think now if you look at it from the next wave of young dudes, Mike MacDonald, and what he was able to accomplish, I think that is something that Jesse Minter is now poised to put himself in the position of the next guy, if you will. So in 2 years' time, to win a Super Bowl is remarkable. Congratulations to Mike MacDonald. The Seahawks played an incredible postseason. They limited their turnovers. I think this was either a Super Bowl or a postseason where they had 0 turnovers. So it must have been a Super Bowl because they did have some turnovers during the postseason. But to have their quarterback and Sam Darnold be the first of the class of 2018 to be able to win a championship is saying something. So the blueprint for Jesse Minter is that I'm going to put together a staff. I'm going to hold them to a high standard. John Schneider has done a remarkable job. We saw it last year with the Eagles and the way in which they, too, defensively built their team. Well, if you can build a team and is not right player, right price and comp picks and stuff, but being aggressive smartly and building your team, then let's go ahead and do it. And I think now this is where, from an Eric DeCosta standpoint, okay, your turn is up. This is the offseason where Jesse is still building his staff and making things go and grow the way in which I want to do practices, the way in which I want the guys to do each individual portion of their practice. But then Eric has to go out there and he has to, what is this offensive lineman doing? What about that offensive lineman? Boy, here's some tape that, I think if I put this on the plate of George Kakanis, if I put this on the plate of Ozzie, if I put this on my own plate and make sure that I have the good interior D lineman, because that was one thing that you saw was the rush of the Patriots was nullified, and the pass rush of the Seahawks, I mean, they brought 4 at different points in time. Sure, they had to send pressures and all that. But I'm talking about when you're bringing 4, that's a drafting thing. That's we have trust in the guys to beat your guys. Our guys are better than your guys. At no point in time did I see our guys are better than your guys when it came to the Ravens last year. And so when it came to the Ravens in crunch time in big games throughout the last 3 seasons. So there is something to be said about, hey, John Schneider, you did it. Okay, great. Now it's your turn, Eric DeCosta, to get her done.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the Jesse Minter thing, I mean, that's the plan, right? Is to have Jesse Minter be the next Mike MacDonald, be that next great defensive play caller to win a Super Bowl. And, there's a lot out there, whether, again, like the initial response from the NFL world, from Jesse Minter's players in Los Angeles, like there's a lot in that initial process of him initially being hired that you're like, okay, this makes me feel really good and confident because of the respect that he already has at such a young age. We've all talked about it here as well with the staff he has assembled and, guys believing in what he is putting out there and having these veterans come to Baltimore, these young coaches come to Baltimore, a nice blend and mix of hiring. Again, it's not just like, oh, this guy, this up-and-coming coach is a risk. No, it's like established guys that have potential to do something big. And so, I know, and I talked about this morning on the show, where it's like the hot thing to do right now is to hire the next bright young offensive mind. Like that just is what it is, where everybody wants the next Sean McVay, they want the next Clint Kubiak. Baltimore didn't want the Clint Kubiak, they wanted to go with Jesse Minter and his style of football. Or again, I honestly don't put a ton, like obviously it's important, I think, to have a play caller as a head coach. I think after watching John Harbaugh for 18 years, who again did a good job of delegating in spots, but we also saw the reverse of that, which was at times it wasn't great. But I think having a play caller to me is important. But to me, it doesn't matter what side of the ball it comes on, as long as that guy is great at what he does and he builds the proper staff around himself. Because we talked about how so much of it was, okay, the Ravens hired Minter, that's great, but you got to get the staff right. And so Mike MacDonald did that, right? I mean, he brought in Clint Kubiak this year, and all right, it wasn't working out last year for what they wanted to do offensively. Mike MacDonald said, all right, we're not going to do this anymore. We tried it. All right, cool. We're going to bring in Sam Darnold, get rid of Geno Smith. All right, cool. Now, the Ravens, I think, have a higher floor than Seattle did to start their offseason last year, their Super Bowl offseason last year. But it is about the moves. And Q, I thought you made a really good point about just like how much is going to change now with all this new stuff coming in and whatnot in terms of, very like maybe minute things to some people, but it's routine in the life of this franchise. Things are going to be different. And I actually talked about this, a little spoiler. I talked to Brian McFarland, Ravens salary cap, for tomorrow's episode of Locked On Ravens. And we talked a lot about this, and I don't want to spoil too much of the show because it was a really good episode, but it's a little spoiler. Is something we were talking about with a couple of positions, including wide receiver. We were talking about Zay Flowers and the decision they're going to have to make on Zay. And I was mentioning the fact that like things are going to shift. And part of that also is how this team values certain positions, because over the John Harbaugh tenure, they didn't really value wide receiver a lot. Like it was something where they weren't paying wide receivers. They've never paid a receiver as much as Zay is going to get on the market, whether it's from Baltimore or from someone else, where they moved off of Anquan Bolden after that Super Bowl season because they didn't want to pay him. And, they didn't sign certain guys to extensions, let them walk. They haven't made that big swing for a wide receiver. But maybe in a new Jesse Minter regime with guys and Declan Doyle comes in that offense, like, hey, maybe wide receiver becomes a priority and they do pay Zay. Maybe they do go out there and make a trade for a guy. Maybe they value the secondary less They have 50 million first-round picks in that secondary. Maybe they invest more of that in the guard spots, or maybe they go more on the D-line. There are so many different things that are going to change, and so I think for Minter bringing in, again, I think a floor culture that's already been established in Baltimore. We know how Baltimore's looked at throughout the league in terms of being one of the best organizations in football, but there's a lot about what is Jesse going to do to change that culture. You know, when Pete Carroll left Seattle, it wasn't like a horrible, terrible culture, at least not from my knowledge. I don't really know the ins and outs of how Seattle worked, but like, didn't feel like it was all everything so toxic with Pete Carroll. It's just like, no, they weren't getting over the hump, and they felt like they needed to make a change. And they did that. They brought in a young up and coming defensive play caller. Took him a year. And that's what Steve Bisciotti said too, where it's like, it took John a little bit to win a Super Bowl. You know, not every single head coach in history wins a Super Bowl in year one. In fact, it doesn't really happen. So there's going to be patience involved in this process. But again, if you told me that Jesse Minter and this Ravens team win the Super Bowl in 2 years, sign me up 1 billion times out of 1 billion for that.
Big time. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how much pressure is going to be on Jesse Minter. As you mentioned, not a lot of rookie coaches that have won a championship. I think there's only been 2. I think Don McCafferty with the Baltimore Colts, for you guys old enough to remember, Super Bowl 5, and George Seifert, 1989 with the San Francisco 49ers. So it's not like this guy's going to come in with the mindset of winning. I'm sure he's going to want to win a championship, but I think fans should be a little, patient in regards to Jesse Minter. And one thing that you mentioned, Kevin, that's also very true is he's going to come in and shift not only the mindset of this football team, but a lot of the X's and O's. This team is built to run football a certain way, and that's possibly going to change with Declan Doyle and what his idea is. It may not take much shifting, but maybe a little bit of shifting going on. Maybe an offensive lineman that worked well in this system won't work well in the Declan Doyle system. Maybe you want somebody a little more athletic. Maybe somebody not so big and clunky, like a certain player who used to play right guard for this football team. So whatever it takes to get things going, the Ravens are certainly going to have to do that. But Q, I'll ask you again, because I think you kind of pointed to this. It's not on Jesse Minter. It's not all on Jesse Minter to get the job done here. I think Eric DeCosta has some of that, onus on himself to get the job done. This offseason seems to be pretty big for Eric DeCosta.
Not only is it big, I think it is incredibly critical that he changes up the way he's been going about his business. If it is philosophy of John Harbaugh not getting the Anquan Bolden, if I remember correctly, Steve Bisciotti wasn't in the I want to win now mode. He was in the, let's develop the team. And hey, we know that Ray was going to be gone and we needed to fill in positions, and we didn't want to, put all our eggs in the Anquan Bolden basket. So we, diversified, and they went out and got the linebacker, was it Darryl Smith, I believe is his name? And I mean, he was really good. Like, definitely helped out. Was it CJ Mosley? Who was before CJ Mosley? Was it? We had a young dude that
it was Arthur Brown was drafted in 2013. I don't remember what year Darryl Smith came in.
He came in after, like,
he might have been 2014.
They needed replacement.
Oh, yeah. Because Ellerby left, so Darryl Smith, and then they drafted Arthur Brown.
Right.
So it was Smith and Brown.
So they're saying, like, we got all that because of what we got by not bringing back Anquan Bolden. My point in saying that is, when I look back at that time and look back at what Eric DeCosta was saying and what pretty much Steve was co-signing, it was, we're just building and this is how we're going to do it and so forth and so on. Okay. Right now, Steve is saying, I want to do it now and I don't want to build. So if that is the case, then there's no need to go ahead and get all creative and fancy with the spices in 11 draft picks that maybe you think, the more you got, the more you have a chance to hit the lottery. Okay, no. Mm-mm. We need to hit the lottery by you going out there and really doubling down on who are good players. We need to hit the lottery when guys like Puka Nacua whether it be conspiracy theory or not, like you need to pick up players that are going to be ballers, not developmental guys that have shoulder issues that are going to miss the entire doggone offseason. So my point in saying that is that aggressiveness is by changing up what you're doing to then therefore fit in the model of what we've seen from the Snyders of the world. Who's old boy from the Eagles, general manager?
Roseman.
Howie
Roseman.
Roseman.
Yep.
Well, those two guys come front and center when it comes to building up. Okay, we know what we need. Let's go. We're gonna make a trade. We're gonna, what is it? What's number 22's name? Shaheed.
Oh, yeah, Rashid Shaheed. Yep.
Rashid Shaheed. Thank you. I keep getting his name twisted up. Anywho, you could see where his explosiveness was evident, and it was a very tactical judgment by Snyder to go ahead and trade for him, and it paid off like huge. So my point is, be crafty. Don't just be mundane and think that the same old is okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that they're going to need to do this offseason, and part of that is, I think, being more aggressive in what they do. Again, I think the base for this roster, it's a high floor roster right now, but they're not going to be able to reach their ceiling unless they make the changes in the trenches. You know, there are a couple of other sneaky knees that we've talked about, but like it's going to come down to, and again, there are multiple paths for them to do that. I mean, if they prioritize more edge guys and defenders in the free agency period and trade period, you can go and take an offensive lineman at 14 and really do that in the draft. Or if you want to trade for an O-lineman, well, you can take a defensive guy in the first round of that draft. So there are multiple ways they can pair things together. But, you know, the job of a general manager is always to balance the present and the future. But it is also the job of the general manager to know which one to prioritize in that current moment. And I think for me, you know, I'm not expecting, again, there's been a lot of conversation about Max Crosby and potentially how many first round picks it would take to get him from the Raiders. You know, I'm still in believe it. I'll see it when I believe, or I'll believe when I see it. That phrase always messes me up. I'll believe it when I see it mindset with one first round pick, let alone 2 or 3. I mean, I'm not expecting Baltimore to be in that conversation. But again, I've maintained this for a while where it's like we've kind of speculated on splash moves over the past handful of off seasons for the Ravens, and nothing particularly has come to fruition. I think that if there is an offseason to do it, it's this one, you know, it's this one right here. If not just for the facts that, you know, I know we all see how Eric DeCosta looked up there at those press conferences. I know he might be feeling some heat. You know, I think if there's anything that he needs to do this offseason to potentially save his job if he's on a hot seat, well, going out there and doing everything he can to get a star in the building would do it.
I don't see anybody in the top 4. Well, I don't see the top 14. Anyone outside the top 5 that was worth the value that you're getting with Max Crosby. So I'm all about it. Make the move, save your job, EDC, and save this pass rush. Severely needs somebody, anybody, to come in and get to the quarterback on a consistent basis. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a little Lamar Jackson. I think you're going to be hearing his name a few times between now and September. A contract negotiation is underway. At least it shall be pretty soon, because a $74.5 million cap hit is no way to run an organization. So we'll talk about what that can mean for this team next on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about most, FanDuel gives you the most ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow gets intense fast, speed skating races decided by inches. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. We are back here, Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Sam Njoku, Kevin Oestreicher, Kadri Ismail, talking Ravens football here with you on Monday. Again, if you're watching live, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, tell your friends about us, If you're listening wherever you get your podcast, feel free to give us 5 stars. Again, tell your friends about the Ravens, the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, because we are here all season long, including the off season, twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. You can also catch Kevin on the Locked On Ravens podcast 5 days a week, including the weekend, depending on the headline. So be sure to tune in. Lots of Ravens news, even though the season is officially over. One thing that is not over is the contract negotiations between the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. The Ravens have been obviously trying to get that cap number down, extend Lamar, give him some much needed cap relief for the Ravens. Now, there are some rumblings with some various sources, not so anonymous sources, to say maybe the Ravens trade Lamar Jackson in this offseason due to the fact that he hasn't signed an extension. That has pretty much been refuted by Mike Garafolo of the Insiders this past weekend. No dice, no way Lamar Jackson gets traded. Instead, the Ravens, Eric DeCosta and Steve Bisciotti are working on a contract extension that will make Lamar Jackson most likely the highest paid player in all of football. Q, when you think about this contract negotiation, how imperative is it for you that the Ravens get this done, or are you okay with the Ravens potentially just voiding years in the contract and setting up some space for the free agency period?
That's a loaded question.
I know.
I would love for it to be done and just not even, be a thing, because, man, that's a lot of money. And I think the way the newness of everything is, it would show both sides of the negotiation table. Hey, we're trying to move forward, and we're confident that we can move forward. And in us being confident that we can move forward, here's how we're going to do it: by renegotiating the contract. And that's a lot. That's a lot when it comes to the details of, obviously, for Lamar, being able to negotiate or be around, I should say, all of the different phases of the coaching hires. Steve Bisciotti coming out, kind of just like, look, let's just get it done. They've been in this situation before with Joe Flacco, so this isn't anything new. It's unique in that you're not going to get a whole lot of, you're not going to get any. Okay, my sources say this. I'm not going to get any of that. Why? Because there's only 2 sources, Lamar and Eric. And so, if Eric wants to spoil the pot, go ahead and do it, but that's not his MO. And if Lamar wants to spoil the pot, I guess we'll just have to wait to the combine, and then says he wants to be traded right at the last second. That's the only way I would see him spoiling the pot. Otherwise, no. They're going to get something done, and we'll be sitting here recognizing that it was good that they got it done. Let's go win and play some football.
Yeah, this is actually another thing Brian and I talked about for tomorrow's show, and he got into very nitty-gritty details about everything, which I appreciated him doing. But, long story short is from my perspective on everything, yes, obviously $74.5 million is not great. You can't have that when it comes to, cap numbers and all the stuff that happens with Lamar and his cap. You need to get that number down. But I do think that it's a less stressful situation for me than it was the first time around we were going through all this, because Lamar's not a free agent this time. Again, Lamar's, unless they trade him, which again, these rumors are so crazy to me. I don't even know where they begin. And again, we hear all this stuff. Oh, hey, Steve Bisciotti says Lamar is the quarterback of this team. Oh, hey, new rumors come out about how, Lamar is a part of the process for head coach and offensive coordinator. And Lamar even spoke to the media during the season and said, I don't know where all this stuff is coming from. And you just continue that rumor just continues. I'm just can we stop it, please? So hopefully this is what puts it to bed, although I'm not holding out too much hope in that, because it always comes back around. But I do think, again, you have a lot of other decisions you have to make this offseason, one way or the other. An extension, obviously, I think would be the best thing. If you have to restructure the deal and push it down the line a little bit to free up some money this year to make sure you can do what you need to do, then okay. But it's not like if this extension doesn't get done by the time free agency starts, Lamar just leaves and he's not the quarterback anymore. That to me, I think that's what I want to continue to hammer home here. But, you have to wonder about guys like Linderbaum and I think Kohler made himself some money. What's a contract for a Wouzier going to look like, or a Draymond Jones? Then on top of that, because you also have to factor in money for your draft picks, right? The 14th overall pick in terms of slot value, in terms of money for that deal, is a lot bigger of a contract than it is for the 28th overall pick. I'm not sure how much and what a lot is, but it's more. And you have 11 draft picks, which again, you shouldn't, but you do. Those are all factors that play into the cap. But if you can free up, I don't know, 15, 20, $25 million off of that Lamar extension or restructure or whatnot, it's going to allow you not only to help you bring back more of your own guys, but go out there. And I'm not saying make like a Max Crosby type or AJ Brown type or a Justin Jefferson or whoever you want to throw in that conversation. Like, I'd love it, but a splash doesn't necessarily mean you have to go after like that top guy. A splash can mean you get Trey Hendrickson and 2 really good guards. I'd love that. Or you go out there and you get Khalil Mack and you trade for, I don't even know what offensive line would be available on the market, but it all kind of starts with Lamar. I'm curious to see what it would look like. But look, Lamar's earned another payday. And the thing I also want to continue to hammer home here is that I remember when Lamar signed his deal in the first place, right? Jalen Hurts kind of jump-started that, and everyone was like, oh, look at Jalen Hurts making all this money. And then all of a sudden, Lamar topped him. As the years go on, and as the years have gone on with this Lamar Jackson deal, every year it's looked like more of a bargain, considering what these other quarterbacks are getting. It's going to be the same thing this time around, too, where you'll look at it and he'll surpass whoever with that deal, is Allen or whoever with that money. And, oh, look at all this money the Ravens are paying Lamar. And then in 2 years, it'll be, Drake May just got a 10-year, $1 billion contract. And everyone's like, oh, hey, that Lamar deal's looking pretty good now, huh? So there's context to everything. But obviously, long story short, if they can get this thing done before the start of free agency, it would definitely take a lot of stress off my plate and a lot of stress off the organization's plate, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can get back to comp picks. Oh.
Hey, I've already sworn off the comp picks. I'm already saying retiring that formula. We're done with it. So
tis the season.
Good.
Well, Lamar Jackson definitely needs to sign a contract. And just of note, technically, it is not Josh Allen, even though he was the last person to sign a contract. That is the highest paid quarterback. It is still Dak Prescott. Yeah. So Josh Allen took a team-friendly deal. I don't expect Lamar Jackson to do that because he has the ear of the NFLPA. The NFLPA definitely wants Lamar to be the highest paid, wants to continue to set that marker for the players to get more and more money. So I do expect Lamar Jackson to be the highest paid.
And also, by the way, isn't it funny the context that we were talking about that Lamar deal in the first time this happened, of the guaranteed money aspect of it, and how look at Deshaun Watson getting his guaranteed money. What's going to happen with Lamar? Because there were so many reports about like Lamar wants guaranteed money. Oh no, now he doesn't want a fully guaranteed contract. And it's like going through all of that. I'm just like walking down memory lane. It's honestly nightmare lane based off how that stuff went. And again, it turned out great, but it's different this time around now, where I have confidence one way or the other, whether it's an extension or a restructure, it works itself out. But man, that 2023 offseason was just that was something else.
That was crazy.
That was crazy.
Yeah. I remember when Lamar Jackson put on social media that I'm requesting the trade, and man, it all
my
broke
heart
loose.
stank. Oh yeah.
I was like, whoa. And it was right before John Harbaugh
like 2 minutes before he got up there.
Oh, Lamar Jackson.
He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing.
What's an agent?
That was
an
fun.
agent?
I honestly, as much as I was like, oh my God, but that was fun to see. So one of the things that I think John's going to get a reality check on in New York, I mean, they don't care. They don't care that, media-wise, they don't, try to necessarily protect John or whatever. They're going to call it like it is. And those New York fans are going to be ruthless. And I'm not going to say thin skin, but he has some thin skin in the way in which he goes about, addressing the media and the fan base. And I think that's where, people were turned off by John when he would, talk about a win or talk about a loss or talk about yet another blown lead, and try to, talk down to you like, that's just end of the bar talk. Okay. Well, I know now you in there deep, and that deep is going to be some deep waters that you're going to be having to swim with the sharks. So, good luck.
Good luck indeed. I don't know how Johnny's going to handle it, but yeah, if he can't handle I won't say softball questions, but media over there, we're pretty understanding. New York, that is a different ball game, and I'm sure he thinks he knows what he's getting himself into, but hopefully he's prepared for the onslaught of questions. There will be razor sharp headed his way in New York, but all the best to John. I mean, what can you say? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have Q&A with Ravens fans. So this is your time to put the questions in the chat. Whatever questions you have for myself, Q, or Kevin, we'll get to it. I already saw a couple of questions, which we'll start out with, but don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Go ahead and put your questions down, and we'll try and answer it to the best of our ability here next on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is when you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for. Trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed someone to hire for this show, I go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I want. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than a non-sponsored job. 90%. That is insane. Sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who are the best match for your role, and that makes a real difference. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. We are back here, Locked On Ravens Squad Show, talking Ravens football, enjoying the offseason. I'm sure Ravens fans are, as now the Ravens are officially 0-0 and on a quest to hoist the Lombardi Trophy around this time next year in LA. Let's see if the Ravens can get the job done. Surely do hope so. We're going to get into some questions here from the Ravens flock, some Q&A. We're hoping here that you guys tune in and post your questions and see what we can answer for you. First question here is from Heather. Sam and Q, spelled your name wrong a little bit there, but we'll let it fly. What free agents on the team do you see staying and leaving? I'll ask you, Kevin, you're in this as well, even though she didn't mention your name.
Yeah. Well, they'll start with Q. Q, what I want to start with Q. What do you got for this?
I mean, Q up, Sam. I think the one free agent that hopefully will never be seen again is Daniel Faalele. Bye-bye, see ya. I think another guy that I like to see back, my number one guy, is Charlie Kolar.
Yeah.
So if I were to say two people, Charlie Kolar, come on, let's do your thing. Sign him. But another guy that I hope does not walk through those doors is Daniel Faalele.
Better not. What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I am also out on Daniel Faalele. I also, and I honestly don't know if this is a hot take or not. Maybe you guys can tell me if it is. I'm not a huge Alohi Gilman guy based off what I saw last year. I just thought the missed tackles were too great. I think that the idea of Alohi was better than Alohi himself in terms of he was brought in, made some impact plays for sure, but I think it was more him being someone who freed up Kyle Hamilton. Like, I think that was more of his role, where I just think that, the Ravens had a missed tackling problem last year, and he was, to me, one of the guys at the forefront of that. Roquan had a part, Marlon had a part, but that really stood out to me. So I think it's going to be a lot of choices at certain positions. Like, I'd bring back Ardarius over Alohi Gilman. I'd bring back Draymond Jones over Kyle Van Noy. Those are the types of decisions that, they're going to have to make. So Like the big one, yes, is like Falele. I feel like is done. Like I wouldn't want him back. I feel like Awuzie is a guy I would like to have back. I'd honestly like a lot of these guys back. There isn't anybody outside of Falele. I'm just like, I do not want this guy on the roster. Like I guess Gilman would be the closest thing, but I have prepared myself. This team is probably not going to bring back Isaiah Likely, and I am probably going to say that it's going to be Andrews Kohler, and then the Ravens have success drafting tight ends in the 4th round or 3rd round or whatever. So like, okay, why don't you just do that again and get another guy? But yeah, I would say the big one that I do want back though is probably Jordan Stout. Like I just don't want them to reset at punter again. And it's almost like, again, I'll take it back to 2023 because I talked about this like every episode for 4 months during that Lamar Jackson contract situation. It would have been horrible for me if the Ravens had robbed us of seeing Lamar on a non-Greg Roman offense. I've said that a lot on this show. I wanted to see Lamar be able to spread his wings and like be able to show what he had already done and then get better. For Jordan Stout, it's not exactly the same, but after a couple of pretty up and down years for Jordan to start his career, we finally have gotten that, like, look, we knew this is who he could be and now he's here. But at this point, if you let him walk, it's like, well, what did we do all that developing for? Just to let Cleveland go get their next punter of the future for the next 10 years or whatever. So I think Jordan's a guy that I would definitely like to see back as well.
Yeah, I think they need to bring Jordan Stout back. I'm hoping for they do. My big concern, and this is maybe a hot take, maybe not. I'm not sure the Ravens will be able to re-sign Tyler Linderbaum. I think that he sees the money on the horizon, and unless the Ravens get Lamar Jackson extended or figure out the contract situation this time where they can really throw dollars at Tyler, then he may be gone, and that would be a real shame and a real problem.
That's a good point to bring up, because I think if I'll kind of piggyback off you there, Sam, and say if Linderbaum hits free agency, he's gone. Yeah. The only chance the Ravens have to re-sign him is if they do it before free agency starts. Because I think, again, if you're looking at Linderbaum and he's like, hey, I want to beat Creed Humphrey's AAV, which is 18 a year, and the Ravens say, okay, we'll give you 19 or 19 and a half or whatever it is, Linderbaum says, cool. All right, awesome. But he's not going to accept a deal that low from any other team but the Ravens. If he hits free agency, you get the Giants involved, you get the Browns maybe involved, you get maybe Jim involved in Los Angeles, some of these other teams.
Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas.
Raiders
that's another one.
Desperate need. Yeah.
All those teams.
They got cap room too.
And that's the thing. You start having all those teams get pit up against each other alongside the Ravens. I'm not sure the Ravens enter themselves in a bidding war like that, where maybe instead of the $19 million you would have offered them before free agency or whatever that number is, that could go up to 22, 23, 24, because you know how many good teams would want good centers? How many bad teams would want a good center to be their guy for the next 5, 10, however many years? Spoiler alert, it's a lot of them. So I agree with you, Sam, where if he hits free agency, I would not expect him to be brought back, and that'd be a catastrophic turn of events for Baltimore.
Don't forget, Vegas has no state tax. So that's a lot more dollar signs, a lot more dollars in the pocket. Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind.
And I see the question from Nano Rave there. Can Linderbaum be franchise tagged? He can, but that number I think is like 28 million. Let me look it up so I'm not.
It is 20. I think
it's 28
million. It's
yeah, it's a lot. Large. And so the obviously the reason the Ravens declined the 5th-year option on Linderbaum, which was 23 or around there, was because they would have reset the market for them. They would essentially be bidding with themselves for Linderbaum next season and resetting the entire market for the league and having to, by default, pay Linderbaum probably 24 or 25 per season if they did that. So, yeah, it's at this point, it's extension or you're out. So, like, the franchise tag idea, like, it's a good one if the number was lower, but isn't it now offensive lineman or just it's a whole number for everybody? Number. It's not by, so it used to be like center was less than offensive tackle, but now all those offensive linemen are in the same number, and it's a lot. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot. So no franchise tag for Linderbaum coming. That's one of the reasons why, I think that this guy could be gone. Let's hope that it doesn't happen, because I think he will be perfect for this offense that Declan Doyle is creating. I think he'd be fantastic, but we shall see. Next question comes from Jack Sakai. What's the target number for Lamar's contract? What are we thinking, guys? I'll start with you, Kevin.
This is an interesting one because, again, you mentioned like AAV wise, it is still Dak, Josh's deal in terms, because again, remember when Mahomes signed his deal and everyone's like, oh, what is that number? What was it, like 450 or something? I think
it was crazy.
It was 450 total, but it was, I say only 45 million per season with a lot of other things. It's difficult because, again, I am curious to see if Lamar would take a quote unquote discount. I'm not sure he would or if he wouldn't. I just am not privy to that. But if you're going for like, I'd try to do, because what Lamar did is the smart thing, which was he had it come back to the table after 3 years. And so he said, all right, I'm going to do this now, but this cap number and everything that's going to happen, if it goes this way, well, you're going to have to come back to the table and do this again with me, because I know you're not going to have me at this 74 whatever $1 million cap number. So I'd be okay if they made Lamar the highest paid quarterback in terms of average annual value. Because remember how it worked with Jalen Hurts was, who was it? Was it Joe Burrow before Jalen? Was it Joe, Jalen, and then Lamar? It was someone Jalen and then Lamar.
It was Kyler Murray before Jalen.
Okay. So maybe that was it. Maybe it was Kyler. I've tried to block that all out of my mind. It was so crazy. But I
have nightmares.
Yeah, seriously. But to me, that's what it was. Is like Jalen reset the market and Lamar says, okay, fine. Like if I just beat Jalen, I'll be cool with that. So if Lamar signs at like 61 per season, because again, the difference between Lamar at 61 and 59 million or 58 million per year, like it's a decent amount, but it's not crazy. I'd probably chalk it up, hopefully, to a deal like Josh Allen got. And I see Big Cuz saying that similar to what Josh got last year. So if you're putting Lamar, because again, we have to remember the cap is going to continue to go up with everything that's happening with TV deals and ad deals and whatnot. So in a year or two, even if he does get, let's just say total money, it comes out to like 340 or 350 because Josh got 330 total. In a year or two, that's going to look like, oh man, what a steal. So I'd probably say ideally it'd be like 57 to 58 million per season. Maybe that comes out to 340 total for Lamar. But regardless, I mean, it's going to be a whole heck of a lot of money.
Yeah. What about you, Q? What you thinking?
Well, I like what Kevin is saying. I think that the market, if he can, what would we say, 40 to 45 add on, so maybe 70 million. I don't think from a Steve Bisciotti aspect of things, I'm trying to think back to Joe's deal, because when we were listening to him talk in the press conference, he did a great job of it, but the way he was saying it was like, all right, we just need to add on, like whoever's the highest and just give them that. So
yeah,
we're looking at right now, Josh is the highest per year.
Dak is the highest with 60 million per year. Right?
Josh is highest total money.
Yeah.
Dak is highest.
Josh is the highest total money. And who's the highest per season?
Dak Prescott.
Yeah. That's where I think that 70 number he said came in. Like, I just give him whoever's. I was like, damn, 70. Woo, boy. I mean, okay. But I just don't know how that would fit as far as salary cap and then the next go round of the contract negotiation, which I think there will be no next time. And boy, I think, get it while the getting's good. If you're Jesse Minter, win as many championships as you can, because I just don't see them being put out there in that regards for a third contract of that upper tier level with Lamar Jackson.
Well, and that's the thing too, where it's like, is this going to be like a 5 or 6 year mega extension at a certain number, or is it going to be kind of maybe similar to what this last one was, where you come back to the table in 3 years again when the cap continues to go up and Lamar gets even more money? Is it going to be a deal? Because again, you can do like the whole void year situation and push money down the line, and and I see John talking about why doesn't the NFL do it like the Dodgers done with Ohtani, with kind of deferring that money and everything. And I guess that's the way that the NFL does it, is void years is now in the Ravens. I think Odell, if I'm not mistaken, because the Ravens did not do void years. And then I think Odell was the first one that they really dipped into that void year situation with. So there's ways to move the money around and figure it all out. I mean, look, the Saints have done it for what feels like their entire organizational existence at this point, with how many times they've kicked that can down the road and tried to do stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I think for Lamar, I am not as worried about the money situation because the cap continues to go up. Obviously, there's a different way to build because, again, you look at these two Super Bowl teams. Drake May is on a rookie contract, and Sam Darnold, what was he, 3 years, 93 is 100, whatever that contract was. So it's not on that mega deal contract. Now, that's, again, not to say a team with a quarterback on a huge deal can't win a Super Bowl. I mean, we've seen that. But there's just different ways you build teams around certain contracts. And I think for the Ravens, they're probably going to – you have to structure it in terms of you give yourself the most flexibility. And that's what's going to happen here if you free up this money with an extension. So I'm cool with whatever they decide to do here as long as Lamar stays. Again, $100 million per season. I don't think we're quite there yet with anybody, but I don't know. Maybe in 10 years, that'll be the situation with how this money's moving and the cap is going up.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think the signing bonus will be another factor, but I don't think he takes anything under $65 million a year. I think that he's going to be the highest paid guy. I think I'm agreeing with Q here. I think it's going to be about $70 million a year. Wow. That's what it's going to take for him to get that contract. He's going to set the market. Now, remember, Dak Prescott's contract was 2 years ago. I mean, that's the last time that contract has been in place. So there is precedence for them to push that boundary a little bit, especially with the raising cap. But yeah, it's going to be a ton of money. Lamar Jackson deserves it, but we'll have to see if the Ravens are willing and if Lamar Jackson is willing maybe to give us a little, Josh Allen, Tom Brady discount. I just don't see it. I don't know if that's the way he operates, but can be surprised. Would love to be so. But we got lots and lots of more questions here. Appreciate those questions. Very thought-provoking. We're going to get to some more here as we close out the show here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. We are back here, Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Kevin Oestreicher, Kadri Ismail, Sam Njoku, talking Ravens football here. Last segment of the show. Again, we're doing a Q&A with the Ravens flock. And again, if you want to be a part of this, make sure you're tuning in live here on YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe if you are tuning in live. We appreciate you for being here. Make sure if you're listening wherever you get your podcast that you give us 5 stars, tell a friend about us, tell a Ravens fan about how great the Ravens Squad Show is here. Again, Locked On Ravens podcast with Kevin, 5 days a week, including the weekends. So make sure you tune in for that, depending on headlines. Don't just assume that we're going to have shows on the weekends. But, there's been very Ravens-centric with news lately. So maybe you're sure to for you're doing the weekend while you're doing your weekend activities. But we're here talking Ravens football here, Q&A here with the Ravens flock. Great questions here. One popped my eye very quickly here. I think this was actually directed specifically for UQ. He wants to know, how do we fix the wide receiver problem? What are we doing? What are we doing, Q? Talking to you.
I think the big thing that people don't see, the receiver coach is going to be a pivotal position. If Dwayne Ledford is going to come in and be the run game coordinator and restore, kind of the balance of how the offensive line was, I think the receiver position and that coach is going to be huge. I think the way in which they were coached the last few years, Kevin, tell me, what was the gentleman's name who was the receiver coach that went to New Orleans?
Keith
he was
Williams.
on the Ravens staff. Keith Williams, thank you. When Keith Williams was here, I think that's where Bateman really flourished. And you saw how, the receiving room, there was like a system of understanding. But I think once he left, the receiving quality of route running, of schemes and schematics went downhill. I think now whoever they bring in is going to be the pivotal person to kind of restore the excellence in that room. I just don't believe that you can just go out there, as we saw with Warhop and with some of the things that went on with the offensive line. I just don't see it being a case where get a receiver and everything is going to be okay. I know I was looking at what George Pickens, the Cowboys look like they are going to try to, bring him back and all the things. But within that, I mean, there's a system that is in place that really you can see where they're working and they're featuring and they're really getting him involved. You look at Detroit and their receiving core and how they operate and some of the concepts and such. I mean, that's some really good, strong concepts and teaching and landmarks and all that. When you look at the Rams, mother of pearl. That's why everybody is so like, oh, I want a Rams coach. I want a Rams coach. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Well, it's because of the way in which that receiving core operates, but who's teaching them? So my point in saying it is that Keith Williams was on the staff when Bateman was one-on-one against Denzel Ward, on the road against the Browns, and your starter goes down and your backup comes in, Tyler Huntley, and he puts on a clinic. Kevin, we talked about this, I don't know how many, gosh, doggone times. But I think with this receiving core, there was too much freelancing and there was too much, make it up as you go. So the off-schedule plays didn't look smooth, and that to me, it goes directly to the coaching. So I think ultimately you start there, then you can start talking about personnel and how it will look in the bigger picture of it all.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of factors in it, and I think that, yes, whoever that wide receiver guy is or whoever it is going to come in and hopefully make an impact. I think at the wide receiver position, again, I'll kind of go back to what I was talking about earlier, where I just think an organizational shift would be nice there. And there's been a lot of different conversation about like what this offense is going to look like with Declan Doyle and the different wide receiver sets and what positions will be more prioritized than not. Like, I think genuinely they have the guys, but I think that like another piece would be nice. Now, it depends on how much you feel like the Ravens need there. If you feel like just bringing back DeAndre Hopkins with the same group and utilizing him more is the answer, I'm sure there are people in that category. Maybe the answer is drafting a guy like Cardinal Tate or Malachi Lemon or whoever it is in the first round at 14 and bringing him in alongside Flowers, Bateman, and Tez Walker. Maybe it's just giving Tez a bigger role. Maybe it is trading for A.J. Brown and including Bateman. Like, there are so many different ways to do it, but I think there has to be more of an emphasis on it. And I think that there will be, because I think there was pressure is the wrong word, but I think with Andrews and Likely and all these guys, again, it's never a bad thing to have like an abundance of receivers to throw the ball to. But within the offense and the systems, particularly in the Greg Roman era, we knew that offense ran through the running backs and the tight ends, and the pass offense ran through the running backs and the tight ends. And while there was a bigger emphasis on how Zay Flowers would have fared in a Greg Roman offense, I couldn't tell you. Like, it would have, there was a lot of stuff that some of these receivers wouldn't be able to do in a Greg Roman offense that they were able to do in a Todd Monken offense. But for me, getting one more piece would be nice. Now, again, if it is A.J. Brown, that'd be cool. But again, I don't really, we'll see how that works out. But to me, I think that just using these guys more, getting them more involved, giving them more snaps will be a really big factor in how everything goes. So I want to see how that looks. And then, hey, you know what? Again, I'm not operating on like the Ravens, because again, with Harbaugh, it was Super Bowl or bust, and it still is every year for the Ravens. But it's less of that with Harbaugh in the Super Bowl or bust. It was more of like, okay, like we need to see that it's not just going to be the same thing over and over again every single season. With Minter, it's like, all right, he can grow quickly with this group. And if it's not a Super Bowl, yeah, that's disappointing. But I'm not going to be saying Jesse Minter needs to be fired after one season as the Ravens head coach if things, they lose in the division round or whatnot. Still a disappointing exit. But to me, if we see the wide receivers get utilized in a year and it's really, really good, and like, all right, hey, you see that potential and Bateman flourishes again and everything happens really well, all right, you can take that to the drawing board the next season. But if it doesn't work, you have the experience of that year to say, all right, now we really have to make that move. So maybe this year it's a trade on the defensive line or it's a trade on the offensive line. And then next year you can say, all right, the receiver position worked or didn't work, and you can kind of go from there.
Yeah. I want to say it's Super Bowl or bust, but I'm going to put pressure on this guy to get the job done. I think that all of the assets are there for him to make some damage. Again, like you mentioned, it'll be very disappointing. I'm not going to say fire Jesse Minter if he doesn't reach the Super Bowl this year, but I think the goal for this team should definitely be to make noise in the postseason and help Lamar Jackson and this group of players that have been, so close in previous seasons get the job done, get a championship, and finally right some wrongs here from that 2023 season that I can't get out of my head. Well, one more question here from Nana says, do you think they'll bring back Loop and Voorhees? Kevin, I'll start with you with this.
Yes, I think that they will bring back both. I would assume that they will bring in a kicker to compete with Tyler Loop. I don't think the Ravens are going to give up on Tyler. I honestly don't think that they should give up on Tyler. Look, we all know he missed the kick. We all know it was difficult. We all know it was bad. But I think that we saw a lot from Tyler in year one that he can build upon. If he can really get those kickoffs down, which I think, again, is something that honestly, like a lot of people are still learning kind of how to work through that. And again, the 50+ stuff as well. Again, like I think a lot of it, and I bring it back to kind of the Ray Lewis, Patrick Queen thing is like, first round linebacker, you got Ray, you got CJ Mosley. In PQ, he didn't have a ton of experience starting in college, but that team was poised. When they drafted him in 2020, they were coming off of that 14-2 year. There were high expectations, and PQ had to learn a little bit and develop. And when you're on a winning team that has high expectations, it's not like I remember Q having this exact conversation with you like 4 years ago. Or man, at that point, it was a while, and we had talked about it because PQ was still developing in, I think, 2022. But the expectations for a young guy on a winning team are sky high, and they aren't afforded as many mistakes. They aren't afforded as much of a runway to make those mistakes. And again, like, I'm not trying to take away the severity of like, missing a kick to take you to the playoffs against the Steelers and, would have only saved Harbaugh for one more week. We know that according to Steve Bisciotti, but like, it's tough to kind of judge these young guys, especially when, like, for example, Jordan Stout, like I talked about, had a couple of really up and down years. Like there was some good, but there was also some pretty bad.
A lot of bad. Let's just say a lot of bad.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
We love our special teams guys, but there was a lot of bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, but so again, if the Ravens had seen after that second season, and they said, "All right, Jordan, we're done with this. We need to bring in somebody more experienced," and maybe they bring in a 37-year-old guy who, was more consistent at that time. The trajectory that Jordan has been on these past 2 seasons has blown that out of the water. And he now, in my opinion, is one of the best punters. I think probably Dickinson from Seattle is probably one. And then, Jordan Stout is in like that top 5 conversation already now, which is awesome. So I tend, and again, like with Voorhees, it's different because like, while I think Loop will get another shot this year at the kicker spot, I think Voorhees will be on the roster, but I think that he will not start next year. I think that they will address that situation. They'll bring him, whether it's a draft pick or they'll sign a guy or trade for a guy. Again, all I want, this is what I said from the start of training camp, all I want is competition. If Voorhees goes in there and wins that job in training camp, then cool, start him because he earned it. And he was the best option for you. But we didn't see that last year from Baltimore. What they did is they handed the jobs out at the beginning of training camp, gave them no competition, and just kind of let them mosey on through without any real like, hey, am I fighting for this job or not? They did. Falele and Voorhees didn't earn those jobs. And that to me was one of the big downfalls of like there wasn't enough brought in the first place. We've talked about that, but it was a complete failure in that regard for me. So I think that they'll address it and sign some big time guys or draft a big time guy to fill in with those guard spots. But I think that they will bring back Voorhees. They won't cut him or anything along those lines. I think that Loop and Voorhees will play another year in Baltimore, but I think Loop will have the opportunity to play and be the kicker, while Voorhees, I think, will be more of a backup.
Key, what do you think?
I think if you look at the big picture of Voorhees, competition thing is spot on. He's going to have a huge offseason. I think he's already going to be in the hole. as much as they can say, oh, well, you played and all that. No, I think having a new freshness, if I'm a free agent, I'm like, oh, okay, give me a shot because they didn't play well and he didn't look good. So I would be welcoming to come in and try to earn a spot on the offensive line. Ditto with, Tyler. I think Tyler has, boy, the bar was incredibly set high with Justin Tucker, his rookie year, and trying to compare, and that's just, that's a tall order. But I think Tyler needs to show that last year. I can build on it. I think for Jordan, my goodness, I mean, he played incredible and showed up. So, okay, like, pay the man. He showed up. That's what you want. What have you done for me lately? I balled out and I am a Pro Bowler. Pay me. That to me says what is needed to be said when it comes to Jordan Stout.
Oh yeah, I agree. Jordan Stout, they got to pay him. You be setting a Bengals and Browns type precedents if you don't pay the guys who earned their money. And Jordan Stout's one of those guys who definitely earned it. I'm with you guys. I think Voorhees comes back, but he doesn't win that starting job. He has that experience. He is in that rookie deal. He's not worth getting rid of when you got a body for training camp, especially having big guys is crucial. So I think he'll come. I don't know if he'll start, but he definitely should be on the roster from the Ravens. And Tyler Loop, yeah, he's a rookie. I don't really get the whole bashing a rookie for making a mistake. It's entirely different. It's very difficult to play football as a rookie, no matter what position you play. I know Tyler Loop missed the kick, but they brought Randy Brown back, which tells you the mindset of where the Ravens are with him as a rookie. I'm sure they're bringing competition for him to kick, but I think that we're going to give Tyler Loop some grace and help him, get back to where Jordan Stout is now, which is a Pro Bowl punter for the Ravens. So hopefully Tyler Loop comes in and becomes that Pro Bowl kicker for the Ravens as well. That is going to do it for us here, the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. I appreciate the Q&A. All those questions were great. And I appreciate everybody for tuning in here. I know it's officially the off season, but lots and lots of news coming up. Our next show will be Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So be sure to stay tuned for that. For myself, Q, and Kevin, thank you guys so much for tuning in for the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, and we will see you on Wednesday.